The current season of anime, to say the least, has been a bit of a mess. From the abundance of production issues due to quote-unquote COVID, there have been a lot of anime going on off hiatus all season long. Misfit of a Demon King Academy, Bofuri, Kubo-san, and even Nier Automata have all been affected by this, with episodes being pushed back and all things alike. The worst part is, I don't think people even know when these anime are going back to the usual releases, but hey, what can you do when production issues happen? Outside of this, however, for the anime that have been able to stick it through, they have definitely been delivering. Trigun Stampede, My Hero Academia, Vinland Saga, and Machi being just a few names. You're most likely looking at your screen right now with a puzzled look on your face as I mentioned Machi, and I promise you, I am not kidding when I say it's been peak. Last year, I made a video talking about how the series, coming from an anime-only perspective, has just been getting better. Amongst the various familiar conflicts that have been taking place over the course of the seasons, nothing has hit quite hard as the inclusion of the Xenos. The Hestia Familia, going against all the norms once again, managed to bring about a situation that put everyone to the test, leading Bell to not only fight Ainz, but a heck of a rematch against the Minotaur from season 1, who is a Xenos known as Asterius. I found myself quite impressed because for what it's worth, Machi has been able to provide a new and interesting situation each season. Of course, with the dungeon itself still being at the center of attention, the last 2 seasons have been returning to it, and this has been the best showcase of what could possibly go wrong. I personally believe that in order to avoid a setting getting stale, there needs to be the inclusion of new elements that really catches the audience off guard while still fitting in the parameters of it making sense. If there is one thing that the Xenos season made evident, it's that the dungeon is alive. Being able to heal itself, produce these intelligent monsters, and have timers for certain spawns support this idea. Season 4 kicked off another expedition with Aisha tagging along this time, and of course this also kicked off the chain of the worst events imaginable as foretold by Cassandra. The new element this time around was an intelligent moss monster that was not only outplaying adventurers with tactics such as baiting and forced monster horrors, but it was also evolving as it was leveling up on its own. While it is not defined as a Xenos, its level of combat smarts and tactics to corner adventurers put the danger level on incredibly deadly, giving Bell not only a hard time and a borderline beatdown come round 1, but separating the leader from the team as well. Bell being separated from the crew raised the stakes even higher, forcing Aisha to step it up as the lead. By the way, I do not care what anybody says, she is the MVP of this entire arc, but I'll get into that part later. Between the constant swarm of enemies, Welf's magic swords going out of commission, and the lack of Bell for a long time, it made me wonder how they were going to get out of this situation. It ended up being a game of who can outlast who the longest, and thankfully everyone survived this time around, but the fact that a monster of this caliber was able to brutally take on multiple adventures at once was a red flag for future events. Now, while this monster is one of the rare versions, it could have simply been rendered down to having bad luck of encounter, but I still wasn't convinced that the dungeon was just going to behave itself, especially with Daphne's visions in mind. The second half of season 4 took us into the situation of the Gale Wind being suspect for murder. Not only does a heap of adventurers join the hunt for her within the dungeon, but so does our Familia too, given their secret relationship. What started out as a descent for answers gradually turned into one of Machi's grittiest and goriest arcs yet. The answers that we sought out came to us in the shape of a monster that was also the source of the Gale Wind's trauma. Not only did this monster wipe out her Familia, but just like before, went on an absolute rampage, and she was unable to do a thing about it as it carved through adventurers one by one. This time, not only taking Bell's arm off for a bit and knocking the daylights out of him, but slaughtering almost all of the adventurers that went down in pursuit of the Gale Wind as well. On top of that, Bell cannot even beat the thing, so the survivability rate is not looking too good right now. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Bell is not with the main party again. At this point, we have Bell separated from the main party, a bunch of dead adventurers, a monster that cannot be currently handled by anyone, and all of this taking place within the unpredictable nature of the dungeon. As things just kept getting worse and worse, you have to ask yourself, when do things get better? And the best part is, it doesn't. The end of season 4's first core managed to leave us off with a barely functioning Gale Wind and Bell on the lower floors of the dungeon, which is practically hell on earth for them. Above them, the main party is fighting a whole raid boss that decided to pop out now of all times because terrible RNG and timing, I guess. We have 2 separate groups of people struggling to survive when their greatest strength is when they're all together, and on top of that, with the grueling atmosphere of the dungeon providing non-stop encounters and deadly stakes from all sorts of monsters, this season was slowly becoming the best one yet. Bell doing his absolute best to keep himself and Ryu alive, and the main party going against a raid boss without the central powerhouse are the situations that truly put everyone to the test. I also just want to say that for this dragon to be CG, the team did an excellent job, and camera work and animation included absolutely nailed this boss fight. It is not easy to animate these big objects, but they managed to do it where it doesn't feel jank, and every hit that connected felt consistent enough to where I was never thrown off. The main part of this arc that really won me over is everyone's struggle and perseverance to live. Your resources are limited, your exhaustion is at its limits, the odds are stacked against you, but even so, you muster up the courage to push on to see the next dawn. The boss battle was a combination of everyone's efforts and Aisha hard carrying the party to victory. She was the perfect powerhouse and coordinator that really held things together. Her inclusion within this arc showcases just how much of a proficient adventurer she is, especially with her taking up the the vacant role left by Belle. Also, she went literally through fire and dealt the final blow against the dragon, so I think it's fair to say that's raw tax at its finest. I also gotta respect Mikoto too, because even with her getting bitten up by the monsters underwater, she was still casting her chance, and it was just such a hype moment. Character development wise, I'd say that this arc is a big push for everyone to step up and not rely on Belle to make it out alive. On the other hand, it is also giving room for Belle to grow once more, as people tend to evolve at a much more rapid pace when the circumstances are not in their favor. I do appreciate the influx of backstory this half has provided with Ryu in seeing how she was in her Familia's time, because it shows how much she values them and also showcases a different side of her character both in mind and in spirit. The loss of one's Familia is pretty much one of the worst case scenarios, all things considered. You don't forget it, you may not ever move on from it, but you can grow from it. I feel like a central theme of this arc is growth itself, given everyone's efforts to survive has been pushed to new bounds and nobody has been given the short end of the stick when it comes to displaying that growth. One of my favorite parts so far has been wealth blacksmithing in the dungeon, because what way to show more pride towards the thing you commit to the most than being able to achieve results in unfavorable circumstances. When the odds are stacked against you, you just don't turn around and die, but you rise up until the very last breath, and that is what this season of Machi is enforcing. As far as Belle goes, this situation is going to push him to obtain the strength he needs, keeping consistent with the vow he made after his loss with Asterius, and that is what makes him such a charming character. He's hardworking and he doesn't get the easy way out, but that is what makes his victories so much more satisfying. As far as how this concludes, I sincerely doubt that anybody within our main group will die, and as much as it may seem reasonable to kill a character off this season given the circumstances, it is not yet time for it. Stakes are more than just death, and this arc is about how these characters look it in the eye and rise above. I expect the finale of this season to be Belle ending Ryu's nightmare once and for all, and hopefully allowing her to be part of a Familia once again to close off this arc of her character filled with so much guilt and anger to the point where she could not move on from it. This current arc of Machi is without a doubt one of the best anime this season, and I almost want to say that it's a bit underrated. I feel like Machi got stuck in the same category of SAO, and yet it has managed to surpass expectations with how its world building, developments, and consequences are handled. This series is one of the light novel adaptations that truly deserve the hype, and I look forward to being able to support it for as long as it manages to not hold back in the brutality and developments that come with the life of being an adventurer. Of course, if you have happened to fall behind with Machi, then hopefully this video has given you some homework to do. That's pretty much it from me though. As always, thank you for watching, and if you have been keeping up with the latest season of Machi, make sure to leave all your thoughts in the comment section down below. Stay safe out there, and I will catch you guys in the next video.